Hi, my name's Alistair Somerville of Acuity Design, and this is a talk about the systemic design framework for the Design for Planet projects, which are being organised by the Design Council in the UK. Now, the framework holds many roles, many activities and many elements, and I'm going to talk through them using the Design Council's original words. Now, they split things across these four areas. So there are 6 principles, 4 key roles, 4 design activities, and 4 enabling activities. And as you can see here, those are described in greater detail. And underneath that, you have 6 principles, the 4 key roles, the 4 activities, and the 4 enabling activities, all described in detail. Now, what the framework is attempting to do is to be able to cover the issues of the climate crisis, which run from the small to the vast. And it's that changing in scale which is important to think of. That we start always from the small, from the personal, from the people, from yourself. But of course things go all the way up to the vast, to the planetary, to the ecological, to things beyond ourselves, beyond our planet even. And the different parts of the framework are placed as a way of being able to move between the small and the vast. So we have the 4 key roles, the 4 characteristics of change makers, which are identifiable and possible to allocate to individuals, to people. You have the 4 design activity forms. And these are the design tools, which of course people can use in the projects for climate crisis. And these activities and these characteristics are held within a framework, the systemic design framework, which has a broader sense of enabling activities to do with systemic thinking, connecting, designing, storytelling and leadership that hold the previous tools, characteristics of humans within itself. So there we have it, 4 key roles, 4 design activities, 4 enabling activities, each of which has a different scale, moving from people to planet. But from the work I've done in prototyping workshops, trying to deliver this material, something goes missing. Can you see what's gone missing? Here we have 6 principles, 4 key roles, 4 design activities, 4 enabling activities. Put it into this diagram: key roles, design activities, enabling activities. What seems to have gone missing is the principles. They're not actually visible in any of these things, any of the things we talked about. These are the gone missing principles, the things which actually attach ethical and ecological meaning to the work that's done. So the easiest thing to do is to allocate the principles into the key roles, into those change maker characteristics, so that we actually have somewhere where principles are made into responsibilities within roles. It's worth looking at that and thinking about something as well. Do remember that some types of role, some types of activity should be fixed. The responsibility remains with a certain person because they have specialist knowledge or they have lived experience. So the idea of the systemic thinker, the convener and the designer All of those hold specific tasks, specific responsibilities, because they have specific capacities and abilities. However, some things which are quite often fixed should be flexed. The idea that the storyteller and the leader should be a permanent role, should be an individual, appears unhelpful. And actually you should be able to flex those roles between different people, between the systemic thinker, the convener, and the designer, so that sometimes they lead, sometimes they're the storyteller. And that's how you can maintain principles in projects. What else can go missing? What came up in the prototype workshops is something which is a problem in all design thinking projects and processes. Even when you have this clarity of ideas moving from the small to the vast, using roles, characteristics, tools, and frameworks, something can go wrong. What goes wrong is that quite often we lose the ethics, we lose the principles. And this happens quite often because of a bias within the industry. When faced with a toolkit, when faced with the need to develop new projects, new products, new services, design organizations and designers will quite often strip out the tools they need for the project while dumping the ethical or ecological frameworks which seem to be inconvenient at that point in time when they are most interested in delivering a project efficiently and rapidly. So what you always have to watch is the possibility that you can create good tools, have them used by bad people with consequences that may not be helpful. In order to prevent that, or at least mitigate that, what is needed? Back to the idea of moving from the small to the vast, through the characteristics, through the tools, through the frameworks. What's missing? What's missing, it appears to me, is ritual. Something that holds the ethics, holds the principles, and holds responsibility. So using ritual as a way to hold the shifts from the vast and small, to shift of principles and activities. When talking about ritual, it's worth understanding what ritual is and what ritual can do. The possibility here is that we use ritual to lock ethics into tool use and chain projects to principles so that it becomes harder for bad people to use good tools to create products and services with unhelpful consequences. How one does that is by the design of rituals. Now, looking at ritual design is interesting, and what rituals generally attempt to do is to ensure that things change, but legitimacy is maintained. There are several elements to rituals. Partially, it's about visibility. A thing, a change, must be seen, must be enacted by people in front of people. The other side is there's an element of voice. Things must be named, people must be named, roles must be stated, and words must be said, because these show what is happening, who has power, and where privilege and legitimacy rise. This is a more complicated version of that diagram, but what you're seeing here is that visibility is about having ceremonies and artifacts, things and places, and a sense of presence. And that voice means that you have titles for people, for activities, and incantations, words, ways of speaking. And these draw attention in a specific time. And all of this comes down to the idea that the ritual is a visceral experience for the group where they understand that power, privilege, and legitimacy are being shifted explicitly and with their agreement between people. Now, Kurzat Ozenk has written a number of very interesting articles on the idea of ritual design from the basis of Stanford, I believe. And that looks to 5 elements. That you need a trigger for the ritual, that the ritual needs an intention, that the ritual needs a script, that the ritual needs to be enacted, and that the ritual must have props. Within this project, within the Design for Planet sense, what that means is that we need to have a trigger both at the beginning and end of any activity or session or project, that the ritual should occur at that start and at that end, that there should be an intention, that we draw attention back to the principles, back to the ethics, and back to the systemic in the presence of each other to make sure that we are remaining aware of the importance of the ethics, of the ecologies, of the vast and the small, in a systemic way together to ensure and attempt to prevent bad consequences. These things can be facilitated. They can be built into the structure of a workshop, built into the structure of a project. On the other side, there are the script, the enactment, and the props. These are the titles and incantations, the ceremonies and the artifacts which were talked about when talking about the structure of ritual. These need to be created within the context of the time, place, and community. Now, you can offer structures and examples that have previously worked in other places, but in fact, you need to be able to do this stuff with people so they can create things which are meaningful to them. This is part of the idea that you need to co-design these elements whilst providing a structure for people to think of what might work for them from the history of what has worked for other people. Thus, in the work I'm doing, what I'm looking to do is actually be able to build these workshop design and facilitation structures together, providing the facilitation methodology of a structure for the workshops and activities, providing the purpose within the small and the vast scale, making explicit things within the activities and tools, and then creating workshop activities for co-designing the words, the roles, and the props, offering words, offering phrases and roles and titles and objects as examples to enable discussion, to either choose those words or to make new ones relevant to that time that place, that community. So therefore we meet and make things at the start to ensure we are present together in the future. We talk and record roles and phrases that ensure that we can share power and privilege later. Rituals are thus, in this context, a way of anticipating how to be mindful and compassionate together at the start, during, and at the end of a project. And this is why I think it's important to talk about rituals in Design for Planet, because it enables change which is meaningful during the climate crisis. Thank you.